What is going on, everybody? My name is JJ Valentin. I'm the head of media here at Station Athletics, and I am here alongside Joe Pa, our CEO and founder of Station Athletics. And we are back. You know, it's been a little while since we've had an episode. We've had some busy few weeks, a lot of changes going on. Good changes. So we figured everything out. And today, we're here to talk about the evolution of fitness, mainly our experience and what we've seen from the beginning of our athletic journey to now, mainly what was being taught and what we are currently teaching and what we've learned throughout it all. So you want to just dive into it?
So this was a topic that you came up with, and
I'll take credit for it. Sure.
Yeah, you can take credit for it. But it's like a good concept, because if you we're not going to talk like way back, like 1950. Like we're literally going to talk honestly like the last 30 years, really, and really like the last 25, 27 years in particular, right? Because that's where we've seen the biggest change in fitness overall, from kind of what it was kind of used for, and then kind of like how it continued to change the use over, and then like what things were introduced, what things were removed, what things came back. Like a great example is like Olympic weightlifting has gone in and out of performance like a few times over like the last 30 years.
Yeah, it's like the fitness community or the fitness world is just constantly morphing and changing. And like I feel like right now we have a pretty solid understanding of what it is, what you need to be focusing on to actually be healthy as opposed to like looking healthy.
Well, because it was always the perspective of, and we did this in one of our other episodes, right, about food pyramid, right? About how, let's just use this is like a nice launch into this conversation, is when someone would just make up that like you're fat because you have too much fat in your diet, but it's like, so like it's not understanding like how your body actually works, right? Like people would just make up these general things of like, oh, don't eat brown rice, or no, don't eat white rice, only eat brown rice, but but why, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand with like, you ever see these memes all the time? I'll start sending them to you of like, there's this guy that just like makes fun of like people that like give exercise advice, and it's the same bullshit. Like, oh, if you want to build muscle, you got to do low reps or low weight and all really high repetitions. It's like it's just like there's all these like myths in fitness that like people still actually believe, and it's kind of just dumb, but it's no different than someone being like, oh, I can't have any carbs in my diet, and then they don't even eat veggies.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same exact concept.
Yeah, so you want to start off talking about how you started, because you said you want to get into like how high school was just like go to the weight room, lift as heavy as possible.
Yeah, it's what I'm saying. So like when I grew up, my dad was a bodybuilder, and he worked out in one of those typical grungy, dirty bodybuilding gyms, right? But I saw weightlifting to just get big and strong, but it was never like there was never a performance piece to it.
Yeah.
Right. Bodybuilding was just like, oh, I'm just gonna go do bench press, and I'm gonna do curls, and I'm just gonna
More aesthetic stuff.
aesthetics.
Right? Yeah.
Right. So I'm talking like this is 30 years ago. Right. So when you think of like that was like the introduction to, I guess weight training for me in general was because, I grew up in a gym setting, like my parents owned a gymnastics gym, and then like my dad had a regular fitness center, right? Like a regular Globo style gym, right? And that's kind of like the space I grew up in. But like all I ever saw was like, oh, they just lift a lot of weight and their muscles get big. It was never like, oh, if you do this, you'll get better for this. It was never really taught that way, right? So then like the way that it was always separated was like bodybuilding was for aesthetics, and then you had performance, which was just your regular practice. So an example would be, if I want to get better at soccer, I just have to play it all the time, right? But there was never a consensus of like, let's do speed training, but you do speed training, but incorporating explosive movements, right? That was decades later of when I realized like, oh, this is what should be done. Like that's kind of like the space that you kind of grew up in. There was more weight training specific for sports performance.
Yeah.
Right? So that's like kind of like what I like, and that was like that until, like I would lift a little bit here and there with my dad, like not a whole lot, but I didn't start getting into like actual weightlifting in even high school till maybe like 10th or 11th grade. it was always, if I wanted to be better at, like I wrestled, right? If I wanted to be better at wrestling, I had to just do that. So like, what did I do? So I had not only my regular high school team, but then I would have my club team. And then I would have my other club team, right? Like it would, like I had like a travel, like there was off season wrestling. There was this. So like you just did it all the time. When in reality is my off season should be like, oh, let's just get stronger because you'll be better at X, Y, and Z. It's not saying that you don't do the sport that you're trying to get better at, but maybe it's like if you're a track and field athlete, it's like it doesn't mean just run all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you got to work on the little muscles to actually help you run. And just
you
running
break
isn't
down mechanics,
always going to
right? Understanding the
fix that or help
like
that.
understanding stupid shit. Like I talk about it in the gym here a lot when I go over like running on the outside or on the assault runners or the true forms. I always talk about a term, really basic track and field term called force application. Do you know what that is?
No clue. Never heard it before.
So force application is the amount of force you put into the ground for your foot to rebound off the ground. Right? So sprinting is all about force application. So the faster you put your foot down into the ground, the faster it's going to react from the ground to come back up. Right? You're not picking your leg up. You're putting it down and it's bouncing, and you are rebounding, right? So in a sense, but that's what force application is, and that's what running is. It's all about posture to force application, and that's what drives you forward in a sprint, right? So the assault runner teaches that really well, right? And we'll kind of circle back of why we're talking about this in a second. Is when I'm teaching an assault runner, it is a force application building style machine that makes you run so much better outside if you can run strong on the assault runner. Right? Because you're not only putting your foot down, but you're also actively pulling to make the wheel spin. But it's all about where you're placing your foot, right? Controlling the application of forcing your foot down and actively pulling projects you forward more. So if you learn how to do that, when I was like training competitively, my fastest times outside were from me training on that machine because it teaches you how to run perfect on, like if you can run a 6-minute mile on a assault runner, you're going to run way faster outside.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So when did you start learning that stuff in your athletic career? Like, was that in college when you finally started learning about that? Or
Yeah,
was it,
so
like,
I
high
had
school? 'Cause you did track your whole life.
Yeah, I
basically,
did
right?
track and field in college, decathlon. So I did so this is where it came to, right? So I do in high school, I'm doing just field events and sprinting, right? Pole vaulting, that was my event. And I'm doing that. I'm doing long jump, and then I'm doing sprinting, 100-meter dash, 200-meter dash, 400, 4x4s, 400-meter hurdles. I was a very well-rounded athlete when it came to power output or explosive events. So I never ran further than 400 meters,
No
really.
distance.
Yeah, I mean, dude, honestly, so track and field terms, people think that anything under 3,000 meters is still considered a sprint.
Nah, that's crazy.
Yeah. You guys are stupid, you track people. All the distance runners will be like, what do you mean? I do a sprint. And I go, no, you don't. You run a mile.
That's far for me.
That's far, dude. So while I'm learning those events and I go to college and then I'm like, all right, I'm like, the decathlon was like something that appealed to me because I was well-rounded in so many events. But where I struggled with is I struggled with a lot of upper body strength, right? So the throws were very difficult for me. So then I'm breaking down the events and I'm like starting to research. And this is when you start to see a lot of, like I went to University of Delaware, so Division I program. And we had a weight room, an Olympic development style weight room. So this is the first time I ever saw weightlifting platforms. This is the first time I ever saw like really high-end squat racks, right? I didn't see any of that. Because in our high school gym, it was probably similar to like what yours was at Sparta there was benches, there was dumbbells.
Well, we had actual racks, and
you guys had racks.
Kind of shitty, but like we had actual racks, like deadlifting racks in the middle of the gym.
So like they had that, but like I never even back squatted before.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Until college. It just wasn't a thing. So when I go to this program and I'm like, all right, cool. And then like I start thinking about it and then like trying to understand why we're doing what we're doing. That's like a big thing with me is when we teach and we do our intro courses here, right, for our new people or people that are trying to get into just general health and wellness, you want them to understand why they're doing what they're doing. Okay? It's not just a fucking free-for-all. Why are you doing this? So I start dissecting like, okay, why are we doing cleans? Like, why are we doing snatches? Why am I back squatting? And it all made sense because now I'm training my muscles to be short, explosive bursts. So it translates over to what I'm doing, right? And then when you go event specific, right? I did everything. So I did 100-meter dash, 200 hurdles, shot put, discus, javelin, pole vault, long jump, high jump, right? Like, so now it's like, okay, how do I make myself better at these individual things? So then you start understanding like the plyometrics, explosive work, box jump, single leg work, bounding. But the point of that is I consider that strength training versus like sports specific work, right? Bounding and things like that are explosive work. Seated box jumps are those kind of work. But like understanding you're doing it for a specific reason, right? Overhead throws with a heavy medicine ball was for explosive hips, for shot put, discus, javelin, jumping events, right? So then I start breaking down all the movements into what we're doing to really understand like, okay, this makes sense now, right? So then you become more analytical of, all right, if I do these things and I'm strengthening my hips, it will translate over to X and this and this and this. So it was really my early 20s, late teen years that I started like being like, all right, this makes a lot of sense now. So now weightlifting to me, and this is in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Weightlifting now becomes performance-based to me. It's no longer aesthetics. I didn't work out for aesthetics. I never have, up until really recently. I never really did that because I was always in good shape because of the sports performance.
Yeah.
Right?
Just carries over.
Carries over perfectly, right? So that was like the evolution of when I realized finally like, okay, this is sports performance is now overlapping with weightlifting, but not necessarily bodybuilding, right? Because that's, in my eyes, I still looked at that as like, oh, that's just aesthetic based, right? So then track and field's over, I find CrossFit, and now it was the first exercise program that I saw that was completely exercise performance based, I guess is the best way to put it. So functional fitness fitness by definition is a mix of strength training, anaerobic, and aerobic capacity, kind of all mixed together, right? So it was really the first time that you ever look at that and you're like, wow, this is, I'm getting, this is the evolution in my head of it going to the next level is now that. So then I come into CrossFit and I have a good base because I know how to do cleans. I know how to do everything. All right. Like for the most part, I did some presses, but I never really did a lot of that in college. So now I'm learning the rest of Olympic weightlifting, clean and jerks, snatching properly, right? Like all these things. And then in all the variations of everything and all the gymnastics is there and all these things, right? So then you look at it and when you start to dissect it, I think I told you this, how I learned competitive CrossFit was the gym that I went to when I started. I went to open gym on Thursdays and all I did was practice skills. And that's how I learned how to do muscle ups. And that's how I learned how to do, cleans at a better pace. And I learned how to get my positioning work. I learned how to do handstand push-ups. Like I learned how to do kipping, pull-ups and chest to bars and all those things. I did that in that segment. Because for me, I've always been really analytical of like, if I can break the movement down and understand it, I'm going to progress with it. So if you take kind of like the progression of what I just said, right? The thing that I was still missing in my early 20s was bodybuilding.
Yep.
General strength.
Regular strength training.
Right? Because the old school CrossFit way of looking at things, or functional fitness way, was just work out 4 hours a day. And our strength training really was just Olympic weightlifting, strict pull-ups, strict handstand push-ups. There wasn't like a strength training piece to it.
A lot of heavy movements over and over and over again. And that was how you build muscle. So you got better at it.
That's what it was. So then you fast forward, so now let's fast forward to the 2015, 17 range. So now I start looking at programs because we're competing competitively at a high level. It's like, how do I keep getting better? So what we refer to as accessory work, right? Or extra work or extra credit that's different at all the gyms.
Work, yeah.
Accessory work was always our bodybuilding. So we would do all of our work and then be like, all right, now we're going to go do our accessory, and that's where we're going to work on dumbbell presses, and we're going to work on stability work, and we're going to do overhead balances and negative work and bench press and all those things. And that was when I started to get into peak shape of everything. My max numbers were the highest. So now, you know, take that 29, 30, 31, so 7-8 years ago, that's when I finally realized that you need everything for sports performance. Not just your cardio and anaerobic capacity, not just positioning work, not just some Olympic weightlifting and explosive work. You need a understanding of all aspects of fitness for it to be performance-based. Performance sports require a lot of things. Let's break it down.
Yep.
Strength training, right? Bodybuilding or accessory work, flexibility work and mobility. Stability, right? All those pieces. And stability can fall into accessory work, right? But then the last piece is you still need aerobic and anaerobic capacity work to have a well-rounded fitness program, right? So then when I opened here and we start kind of like going through it, it's like the design was always like, well, okay, I need people to understand all of those things. Positioning work, why we do certain types of strength training, and why we still do some type of bodybuilding. Because there's a consensus that when people see functional fitness, CrossFit style gyms, that they don't get stronger.
It is, you see that all the time too, like especially nowadays. You have people that are like, they're huge, right? They're shredded. They can bench like 315 pounds for reps, like it's nothing. But as soon as you have them go on a treadmill and start walking, actually get their heart rate up consistently, you see them start to struggle a lot. And it's because, like, sure, like visually they're in shape, but are they actually in shape now? Because their strength training is only strength training. It's only focused on just lifting weights. And it works for them. It works for like all the accessory, like building up a little muscles to make them look good. But it's not performance. And realistically, you need performance.
And it really depends on what someone wants, though, too, right? Because I know a lot of people, you know, that are just like, they just do bodybuilding. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I asked them to go for a run with me, they would fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And that's why, like, I always say that, and again, I'm biased and you're biased about this, is I think people can aesthetically look the correct way and do our type of program because they need to look at it as a well-rounded program that's designed for health and wellness. And anything can be done in health and wellness because I put every category in that. Okay, you want to tone and you want to lose weight or body fat? Cool, well, the program's good for you. You want to gain muscle mass? Okay, great, the program's good for you. Oh, you want to gain more weight, right? Like, okay, well, the program works for you. We just have to tweak it a little bit because you have to understand nutrition, right? There, it all falls into health and wellness. So now let's fast forward to 2026. Overall, the world is very health conscious. In my opinion, the most it's ever been, ever. Okay? And I think a lot of it has been because of how much information's at your fingertips.
Oh, it's
obviously.
so easy to research this stuff
It's
nowadays.
so easy to research this or that, or like
everyone's talking on it too. It's
Yes.
just a constant conversation people are having.
And there's always things to learn, right? Like something that I've been studying is hypertrophy fit training, right? That like you get a lot of your muscle building in like the last 1 to 3 reps of a set. But it's also people like, and I think I talked off air potentially, but with you about this is if you're, let's just use a simple movement. If I'm doing 70-pound dumbbells on a bench press, right, on dumbbells, and I know that's the weight that I can do, make sure that all your sets are all at the same exact weight because you can do that, right? Don't use 50s as a warm-up and count that as your first set of 4, right? Because you never get the proper hypertrophy burn, right, at that end of those last couple of reps because that's where muscle development comes from. People don't get that, right? They think like, okay, I'm gonna kind of going through the motion has no positive effect on muscle growth.
I mean, it might work at first, not really building muscle, more so burning fat, just to go through the motions.
Of course,
it's not, not at all.
But that's just like one example. It's like I've been understanding that a lot more, right? Or how a big thing that we always press is as you get older. And this is for me watching like my grandfather, pass away a few years ago, and like kind of watch the older generation, how they fall apart. They all fall apart for one reason, because they stop moving and they stop exercising at some capacity And the number one thing that has been proven now to keep people to live longer is hip, leg, glute, midline strength to be able to go up and down. So as simple as if I were to stand up in this chair, can I do it without assistance? That's what keeps people alive a long time now. And that's what you're starting to see. People are like, let's take this, you know, the defunct thing about like when you should start weightlifting and when you shouldn't do it?
Yeah.
Okay. You might remember this because you lifted earlier, but Patty would fall into this. I remember being a kid and they were like, oh, weightlifting will stunt your growth. There's not one fucking thing or proven fact that ever proved that to be real. That it stunts your growth. Oh, what was it? They said that it would affect your growth plates.
Yeah.
But somebody just made that up.
I've heard that
one
before
day.
too when I was growing up
There's
too.
no science that backs that. And I'm talking, dude, that's like 35 years ago. I remember hearing that.
Well, no, it's because people would look at shorter people who would be like huge and like, oh, when did you start weightlifting? And they'd be like, oh, I started weightlifting when I was younger. Like, oh, that's why you're short.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Somebody
Yes.
made that up, right? So there's this whole concept of like weightlifting, and it's like, and I look at like this, and I want my daughter to start weightlifting soon, and she's gonna be 8, right? So like that's something that is gonna start to be required.
Yeah, but that, I mean, you're not gonna have her like doing crazy PRs.
No,
and
but
lifting,
it's understanding basic health and wellness that
Yes.
weightlifting is okay and weightlifting is healthy, and I need to do this to whether it's for sports or just like to understand that like it's important to do that. And then you flip it to the other side. When I remember my grandfather was in like the greatest shape, and then I watched him in like a 3-year period, age like 15, 20 years.
Really?
Because his doctor told him to stop playing golf.
and it's all caught up to him.
And then I literally watched his body just like disintegrate. And then he passed away. Right? So like that's kind of like my point is like weightlifting now has also been proven that it creates it calcifies it calcifies your bones the more you do it, right? And again, there's variations to things like it like hurt yourself. I get it. But what it does is it calcifies your bones more, which equates to harder, dense bones. So you're less likely to break something if you fall. You're less likely to not be able to, if I fall down and I'm 75, I'm gonna probably be okay, right? Because your body is regulated and trained in a certain way, and you've been doing it for so long that it is a healthy benefit to your life.
Yeah, have you ever seen the diagrams of it's like people after they pass away, they take a scan of like their thighs,
Yes.
right? Of someone who strength trained and did stuff their whole life compared to somebody who didn't or like just walked or something like that. And in it, you can see how thick the bone is for the person who strength trained and how
Yes.
dense the muscle around it is
Yeah.
compared to the person who didn't. Here, their bones look much more holy, like much less dense. And the
great
fat
point.
around it is much more jiggly. It's
Yes.
wider and it's not as dense, and you can tell it's not as strong. So like, that's why moving consistently in how functional fitness has grown so much that people are starting to realize this. And it's like you said, your grandfather had a rapid turn off like as soon as he stopped moving.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to keep
I've seen
moving
it so many
too.
times. And keep moving is so important. But like, and when I say health and wellness, like he was like, you gotta also remember, right? He grew up in Brooklyn, old school Italian guy. You can't tell him anything. Whatever the AARP magazine said was what he listened to, right? And whatever the doctor said was right. So like he was so active. So it wasn't that he ever really weightlifted, right? But he was so active his whole life. And then as soon as he became non-active anymore, that was the decline. Right. So I like to use that example a lot because like I visually watch that kind of happen. But like, so my point is to watch fitness and the evolution over really like the last 30 or 40 years, really 30 years. Everything now, it doesn't matter where you go, even the aesthetics piece and the functional piece, it still needs to be done together, in my opinion, to have a well-rounded program. I have people that only do bodybuilding, right? They're regular. They follow a normal bodybuilding program where they're doing muscle isolation. Guess what? They still do cardio as part of their program. It's not going to be like what we do.
Yeah.
They're still going to go on the bike. They're going to go on a rower. They're going to go on steppers. They're going to still do calorie burns, right? Because cardio is important, okay? But it can be done hand in hand. So every program that I've kind of seen now, even a specific program, guess what? It teaches 3 things. It teaches basic cardio understanding, like an ability, right? Cardiovascular work, meal plan and dieting, and then some sort of consistent bodybuilding or weightlifting program.
Yeah.
Every single program has those 3 things.
I can guarantee you back in 20, 30 years ago, we weren't seeing that. The Olympic weightlifter is probably just lifting as much weight as possible. You probably wouldn't catch him dead in a treadmill.
No, I mean, that's the joke of Olympic weightlifting even now, right? Is you have these guys, like, they have their chairs and they go and sit. But all these really good guys, bro, they're doing explosive work all the time. Because that's really what fitness is. It's explosive power, right? And that was the biggest change for me, right? Kind of just to backtrack a little bit. When I started realizing this, I was, Brian Clay was one of like the best decathletes of all time. And I like idolized this guy. He was like my build too, right? Like in track and field and decathlon, most of them were like 6'1", 6'2". So for me being like just under 6 feet, he was like my size, right? So it was like more relatable. And I remember kind of like watching how he trained because he won the Olympics a few times. He was amazing, right? And all his training was explosive work, everything, explosive power. So when that was like really when I started like, okay, I need to try to understand this more, right? So then when you fast forward and like, that's kind of why our programs are designed the way they're designed, right? We incorporate all these things for a reason. Health and wellness is not just an exercise program, it's a diet program. It's understanding, why your body reacts better to this and like why you should do this and this is like, why the program changes on a daily basis, right? It's all those components.
It is interesting too because obviously you talked about your journey started much sooner than mine, but like when I was introduced to fitness and functional fitness, it was all sports specific. I didn't just go to the gym just to lift, right? I didn't really have a role model.
You came out when like the Parisi's kind of schools.
That was exactly when I started.
Those just were new right around when you were like in that high school world.
Because that was 8th grade is when Parisi came to Sparta and when I started going there. And then I eventually found my way over here. And it was, I wasn't doing sports specific stuff. We weren't doing like small sprints to work on that, but we were still doing explosiveness with cleans. Snatches,
I remember when I did that program with you and your team. That's what we did. I focused you. I was teaching you guys. I don't know if you remember this. I vividly remember saying to all of you and all your teammates, the point of this is to prep you for what you're going to experience in a performance-based college program. And that's what I designed, right? I was teaching the basics of cleans, squats, all those things, but I was also trying to get you guys to understand that like the explosive power of why it's so important. And this was for lacrosse, right? Very heavy contact sport, okay? And I remember telling you this, and I trained a hockey player for a while and a couple things, and it was always the same thing. You want to be so strong that when someone runs into it, they'll try and check you.
They just fall off.
They fall off.
Yep.
They go on the floor, not you, right?
Yeah, but it was cool because that's what I was introduced to. Was here, all the explosiveness. And then going to football and like having like our team lifts, you could see the difference from here. They were focusing more on functional training and the future of fitness. In football, just got a gym coach who knew the old ways of lifting and said, we're just going to squat today. We're going to squat, we're going to bench, we're going to deadlift. And no like explosiveness work. He said the explosiveness is in the squat. He started programming cleans more because of this place.
Frank?
Yes.
So you know what's funny about him? He's not going to watch this anyway. So I actually I offered to volunteer to be the strength conditioning coach for football, ended up not doing it because there's too much of a clash.
Yeah.
And not saying what he was doing was wrong. His football program was amazing. So good, right? Your guys' football program was so good.
Yep.
And it's still solid. I don't know if he's still doing it or not.
He is. He's still coaching that.
Yeah, but his program was that old school bodybuilding kind of style.
That's what it was.
Right.
But like it was cool because he even started to introduce cleans because he said, I remember him specifically telling me that cleans was probably the most beneficial lift movement and that if we could get rid of movement and replace it with cleans, we would. He just didn't because he didn't know how to necessarily teach it properly. But it was cool seeing that and then going into college when you have the actual strength and conditioning coach who like went to school for this, researches this all the time, is constantly morphing his program, making programs for all the teams, how he's incorporating the explosiveness stuff, all the little movements that you never even thought to work on, all the stuff that you said that you were focusing on and learning about in your later years in high school and early years in college. You didn't name one regular lift that you'd see at every single gym of like bench, squat, deadlift. You didn't name one. All the movements you were naming was all like little explosiveness stuff that helps work with the stabilities and all that. And it was cool seeing that in college and seeing how it changed so much from old school way of thinking with just straight up lifting and let's just get stronger, get big, to no, we need to actually be sport specific. Like we need you guys actually in shape. So come fourth quarter, you're not huffing and puffing and getting smoked.
And something that we can kind of almost end with this point was one of the biggest things that I saw with functional fitness in general over the last, we've been open 12 years here. So my 15 years in the functional fitness space has been how CrossFit in general and functional fitness style gyms that teach clean snatches, things like that, as like their dominant structure of strength training, they have revitalized the Olympic lifting world. And the reason why that it is what it is today is literally because of these little tiny functional fitness gyms. Because they reincorporated it and retaught it to be like, oh, like Olympic weightlifting dude was like non-existent when I was a kid. It like didn't exist. Like I couldn't even tell you if I even ever saw an Olympic weightlifting club ever. And then they started opening. It's the same exact thing. I was just talking about how Rogue, the company blew up literally because of CrossFit and how Olympic weightlifting was so affected by this sport that came to be because no one ever did barbell work because no one ever taught it. I was just a joke too. It was like when I was in high school, I pole vaulted, right? The fucking pole vault clubs anywhere. I literally taught myself, right? I remember like, oh, what do I do? Like there's a hole there and I hold on to this stick. And, like that's literally how I taught myself how to do it. And then, you fast forward a couple years and then it's like, oh, I found a club, but it was far. It was like an hour away. That guy's still open. He's like in his 80s now. But like, but my point is it's like, so now the sports explode because of that. Like when I jumped in high school is like I was like a state level, right? Like state champion level in New York State. Like I don't even know if I'd place anymore. Same thing in college.
Insane.
Same thing in college, right? Like I was a good vaulter and I was good decathlon, but like, dude, what these kids are coming into now, but it's because of the advancement of not only just the sports in general, but how they incorporate the training into the sport. So now you have kids that are just like, this is why records keep getting broken.
Oh, they're going to keep getting broken. They're going to keep pushing the limit because the strength training and the functional fitness training is always constantly morphing, and we're becoming more and more specific as to what we can actually do to help us improve much more. Like I know in school, we saw kids who did functional fitness in high school compared to the ones who didn't, miles apart.
Oh, huge.
Insane in college. Like the kids who didn't do functional fitness in high school, you could tell first day of practice, they're huffing and puffing constantly, like trying to figure out like how they can keep up. And the kids who did, they're keeping up.
Because you stay in constant shape.
They're on the field. They're constant. They're like, the coaches are surprised. Like you look like you've been here for 3 years already.
Yeah. That's such a good, funny thing that you say that. I just remember wrestling or track or soccer, football, whatever, right? Like I remember like the preseason, like, all right, we have 6 weeks to get in shape. And I'm like, man, I've been doing this all year, right? And that's why I always had an edge. I would go in and I was always in better cardiovascular shape because I was running. I went from sport to sport to sport. And I just remember, to your point, I have kids that would come in and they would take like half the season to finally like be in shape. And it's like, what's the point of that, right? But in my head, I had such like a cardiovascular thing drilled into my head. I didn't do the flip side because this wasn't taught properly to me.
Yeah.
And it's like having like, I had a really good decathlon coach in college. My coach, his name is Nate from Delaware. And then, he taught me the plyometric side of explosive work, right? And then this coach, Kevin from Delaware too, was a phenomenal weightlifting coach and taught me the basics of explosive power with cleans and snatches and squat. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing is like the earlier it's introduced, the more dominant the sports become, or not even more dominant, the more high level it becomes because more people are doing it because they're introduced to it sooner.
Yeah. I mean, today we have the most access to functional fitness in history. I mean, you can find a CrossFit gym probably in almost any town. I mean, I know in Sparta alone we have 2. with the women's gym and the co-ed gym here. And if you have a question, like, it works, obviously it works. If you look at my generation, you walk into just any kind of gym, you're going to see kids in their early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. They're all constantly active. They're all doing things like weightlifting things that you probably wouldn't see 30 years ago, right? They're doing cleans. We're doing explosiveness training, and it's not even like they're doing it for a sport anymore. They're just doing it so that to stay healthy and be performance-based outside and just like be able to walk up a flight of stairs and not feel gassed or fall down.
Yeah, just the world has become, again, like we said earlier, health and wellness is at its highest it's ever been. And people, again, like you talk from everything from hormones to peptides to strength training to, you know, health and wellness, diets, understanding macronutrients. There's so many things now, and people are moving. There's a huge movement on health and wellness, not just weight loss.
Yes.
Because it used to be heavy weight loss, weight loss, weight loss. That's all exercise was ever really used for. But now there's a huge change on like, okay, I want to lose weight, but I also want to be strong. I want muscle mass. I want to make sure that I'm eating right and still be able to enjoy themselves. Be able to pick up my kids. Be like, that's the biggest change that you're seeing now.
Yep.
Right? Because we talked about this in other episodes. The obesity rate in the United States is ridiculous. So people are starting to take reign of their own lives again.
Yep. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed this conversation. Stay tuned for our next episode. We're inching closer and closer to episode 100. I know we had a bit of a break from 91 to 92, but we're back. So hope you guys have a good day. Make sure you tune in on all the podcast platforms you listen on for future episodes, and we will see you at the gym.
See you at the gym.